My philosophy in organizing is to really be proactive. Don't just tell us what you're against, tell us what you're for. What are you excited about, right? When you talk to the families that I organized with for 20 years, it was hardly tell me what scares you so we could keep it out. It was always, what do you want? And that's the difference.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Latino Vote podcast. We made it back from California. I hope all of you got to see the great footage from NALEO and even me and Mike Madrid having some pretty decent tacos out in California. Michael?
Pretty decent. Come on, those are some of the best tacos you ever had in your life.
I told you we weren't talking about that on camera.
We're going to continue. We're going to continue the conversation a little bit today with a guest that I'm excited to be visiting some time with. I also, by the way, after NALEO went to Mexico City for a conference, the Mexican American Policy Alliance. Great new group. We should talk a little bit more about it at some point on a future show. But that's where I met our guest today. I'm going to let you introduce him in just a second. But I'm still on the road, brother. I'm out in Puerto Vallarta right now. I'm not at my house, but I will be soon. Jalisco is hot and humid, jungle tropics, gorgeous weather, though, great air. So I'm not quite home yet, even though it's been a few weeks.
You know, if I lived in Sacramento, never mind. I'm not going. Anyway, it was so good to see everybody at NALEO. For those of you who haven't downloaded or watched the episode, there is a great live recording of us at NALEO. Listen to the people there. You know, NALEO is really like going back home. If there's a listener base for this podcast, it is the community surrounding NALEO. We got to see so many friends and so many fans. It is horrible for me and Mike's ego when we go to NALEO because everybody wants to talk to us. Everybody treats us like we're a big deal, and we know that we're not. But that is our home. And that's where we ran into my old friend Javier Martínez, the Speaker of the House in New Mexico, or as we say it in East Texas, New Mexico. And we wanted to make sure we could get him on the podcast. He said he's a long-time listener, first-time caller. Javier, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you, guys. Really glad to be here and excited for today's conversation.
You have been on the road too. It hasn't just been me and Chuck. You've been on the road a lot too. This is the time of year where policymakers are going to all of these conferences, reconnecting with stuff. Are you feeling a different sense of where Latino America is at? I think you're in Chicago right now, right? You're on the road. You've been all over the country the past few weeks talking to state legislators and policymakers. You're at NALEO. What's your sense of where things are at with these midterms coming up? What's the sense of Latino America right now?
You know, there's a sense of excitement that I'm feeling, right? Whether it's LA, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Mexico City, whether it's back home in New Mexico. I think that Latino voters specifically, with the strength that we bring to the table, are ready to, really make their voice heard in November. I think the question is, each of these parties, how are they going to build that runway for our voters, right? Who's offering lasting solutions to the issues that we're dealing with, whether it's increased rents, the high price of gas, groceries, etc. And I think right now Democrats have a really good opportunity to make that case for November and beyond.
And I want to dig in and I want to back up a little bit because I think it's really important for folks that listen to this podcast that are politicos and reporters and other electeds. I just kind of threw out there, Javier Martínez, kid of a bunch of immigrants, coming one of the youngest ever speakers of the House of New Mexico. We're going to get to how you became the speaker because I think it's really important for other young electeds. But tell us and back up because as a guy who's worked in New Mexico going back to Bill Richards, which is a long time, there is a different strain of Hispanic voter in New Mexico. And for all of you at home, they like to be called Hispanics in New Mexico. And you get up around Santa Fe, there's a lot of white Hispanics who like to tell you about the Spanish land grants and shit. But I digress. What I'd like to know is maybe your family's immigration story to New Mexico.
Yeah. Back in 1989, I lived with my family in Ciudad Juarez. That's where we're from. And my dad at the time and his brothers, construction workers, roughnecks, drywallers, they worked all over the Southwest, primarily New Mexico, Southern Colorado, West Texas, Arizona. In 1989, they find stable work in Albuquerque. So my dad had a friend back in the day. His name is Emilio, who we're still in touch with. He had a dusty yellow van, I remember, and threw us in the back of the van, and we went to Albuquerque, which is only 4 hours from Juarez. It's not a big, long trek. We've been there ever since. My dad unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago after 40 plus years in the construction industry, but did his best really to raise me and my sister and to set us up for this American dream, which, Mike, I told the story at MAPA, at the Mexican American Policy Alliance, is I was landing in Mexico City last week, and, you look out that window and it's just endless, right? It's so big. Uh, it, it dawned on me, right, that 35 or so years ago, we made that trip north, and now I get to come back south as the Speaker of the House, right? In one generation, right, from a construction worker to leading a state legislature. So, that's been my story, and it's a story that I'm very proud of because I think it represents the best of this country, right? This country is still the place where we come to. No matter how tough it gets, no matter how hard it is right now, it is still the place that our people, and not just our people, but immigrants from all over the world, seek to come to make a better life.
I got to tell you, I felt the same way when you land in Mexico. I have a home here, but every time I come, I realize how close it is to your alma, to your soul, but how distant it is from our reality. And they are interconnected, and it's very magical. You keep both of them very, very close. But it is a regular reminder of how beautiful the United States of America is. It just is that within one generation, somebody can have a story like yours. How did you get into politics, Javier? How did you get into public service?
Yeah, that's a good question. By accident. When I went to college, and I went to college in 1999, the fall of '99. The state of New Mexico had just kicked off something that they called the lottery scholarship, which essentially covered most of your tuition. And so that's really the only reason I got to go. Right, we had that financial incentive. Uh, while in college, I meet a group of guys. We're all in the same boat, right? We're sort of all first generation immigrants and college students, and we start working together, right? Just kind of supporting each other and helping each other out. Up until that point, I was working on cars. I worked out in AutoZone. I had an old beat up car, and so in order to be able to know how to fix it affordably, I had to learn how to fix it myself. So I went to work at an AutoZone. And it was between my second and third year of college that somebody, one of my best friends to this day, said, "Hey, there's this organization that's looking for somebody from the community to help them do some community work. Do you want to try it out this summer?" I said, "Sure, why not?" In between my day shift at AutoZone and this job, uh, the job was as an organizer, community organizer. I didn't know what that was, right? And so I started doing that work, and that's my entry point into politics, right? City council meetings, county commission meetings, uh, somebody's campaign event, and whatnot. That's the entry point, which kind of coincides with Richardson's first run for governor, right? We're talking about 2001, 2002. Um, I was a young guy at the time. I didn't have any connection to the political establishment at all, right? My dad wasn't a contributor or a donor. My mom wasn't connected or anything like that. So I was always on the outside looking in as a community organizer. I organized for years. And went to law school and all that good stuff. And once I finished law school in 2010, I got into it more seriously, I think, more intentionally, just really with a better understanding of the political system and who the different players were. And so that's how I get in. Now, fun fact, throughout that entire time in 2003, uh, I decided to run a race for city council in the neighborhood that I was from. It's called the International District. At the time, we called it the War Zone. And I run this insurgent campaign. I get my butt kicked. I lose by over 2,000 votes to the eventual winner, a guy by the name of Martin Heinrich. You may have heard of him. And so to this day, we joke about it. But he's a good friend now, and that was my first race. I lost by 2,000 votes. I didn't have you guys consulting for me, otherwise I would have pulled it off.
Didn't
This
have
is
me
true.
anyway. Didn't
This
have
is
me.
true. You need, and Mike, they only let Republicans into New Mexico. Anyway, I think that's really interesting for folks. I've been having a little bit of a red ass about these organizers and DSA in lots of media that I've been talking to, and there's a lot of professional organizers out there who all they've ever done is organize, and I think their heart's in the right place, and they're organizing for their betterment good, but they never ever really worked like you did and a lot of us did, you didn't even know what organizing was. You were just like, oh, it's a job. Oh, yeah, I like talking to people. Oh, I'm from the community.
Yeah.
That's how organizing is supposed to work. If there's a right or wrong reason, again, not putting labels on it. Tell us about the New Mexico legislator. How old were you when you took the speakership? I know you were from the Albuquerque area, you'd run for state rep, then you would become speaker. How old were you when you became speaker? And then for us nerds, and there's a lot of brown nerds on this podcast, tell us about, and we know Democrats are in control, but talk about the dynamics, because your state, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think is a little bit like Mike's state, where you have Democrats in control of everything, the governor, the state house, the state senate. But I'm interested in the dynamics between the party in those power struggles at the state house and how you deal with that when you may have the far left or right of the same party.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me get back a little bit to what you talked about with organizers. I do think that there's a difference between organizers and activists, and I think that
That's a good
there's
point.
a role for both, right? I think a lot of what we see with DSA and whatnot is it's activism, and it's great, right? We need the activism. We need to be held accountable. But organizers, I think we're a different breed, right? We're always looking for ways to get things done. It doesn't matter how big or how small the win for the community is, it's equally important, right? I know we're going to talk a little bit about universal childcare here in a minute, but look, universal childcare wasn't just a big protest and we got it, right? It started 12 years ago with very intentional small group organizing. That's the difference. In terms of my legislative path, in 2014, the gentleman who had the seat before me, a wonderful guy by the name of Rick Mieta, retired unexpectedly. He just sort of announced at the end of that legislative session, and I jumped in the race. I ran against
How old were
a
you?
party. I at the time I was 33. I ran against a straight up party insider, somebody who came out of the Democratic Party executive staff. I ran against somebody who was a lobbyist for the teachers union, right? So two very powerful interests. By that first weekend, I had already knocked both of those folks out of the race because of all of the neighborhood endorsements, because of my organizing work all those years, right? So I had all the people on the ground signing up immediately. I ran in 14, took office in 15. The Republicans had taken the majority of the House for the first time in 60 years in New Mexico. It was a watershed moment. You had a long list of old-timer Democratic members of the House who ended up retiring because they lost that pathway to that committee chairmanship that they so coveted for many, many years. So by the time we take back the House in 16, I'm already probably top 15 in seniority, right? Just luck of the draw, right? Um, Eventually, throughout those 8 or so years, one accident after another puts me in a position where I'm ready to take the speakership. So I take the speakership in 2013. I was 41 at the time. I am now going into what will be my third term as speaker, assuming the caucus votes me in again in November, which I think they will. Um, but that's the journey. But I got to tell you guys, it was truly kind of like just our immigrant story, right? Just kind of accidental, just at the right place at the right time. I am known as somebody who puts in the work, right? I don't just talk the talk, I put in the work. And I'm also not somebody who likes to take the credit for the work that the caucus does, right? So, I don't know if you guys heard my speech at NALEO, but I'm listing off all these accomplishments, and I'm very quick to say these are not my accomplishment. These are accomplishments that come from the caucus. I get to direct it, but it's really the people on the ground, which goes back to my organizing training, right? When a neighborhood wins a battle against a liquor store, or when they win a battle against a polluter, it should never be the organizer who's up front telling the story. It's the people behind you telling the story.
What do you think? Let me talk about organizing a little bit in a slightly different way, because I love, and this is the way I got to know Chuck, is he was doing some really amazing stuff I'd never seen done on a campaign before, very successfully with with Bernie Sanders. I'll deny I ever said that, when he pushed me to say that again, but he really did kind of change the world of politics in that cycle, and has been doing so ever since. But can the same organizing tactics used to stop a liquor store or used to stop a polluter be used to advance an economic agenda and start pushing for things as well? Have you seen a record of that? And is that something that needs to change as our Latino identity changes and our needs change as a community?
I love that question because I think it gets to the heart of who we are as immigrants in this country. It's not just about saying no to everything because it makes you uncomfortable, because it's going to block your view, because you're concerned about where people are going to park, right? These are oftentimes what we hear when it comes to building housing, when it comes to building economic development projects and whatnot. My philosophy in organizing is to really be proactive. Don't just tell us what you're against, tell us what you're for. What are you excited about, right? When you talk to the families that I organized with for 20 years, it was hardly tell me what scares you so we could keep it out. It was always, what do you want? And that's the difference. When you organize with upper middle class people, it'll always be around what they're afraid of, right? And, I joke about the parking, but it's never about the parking. It's about what kind of people are going to park, right?
That's right.
To be very real, that's what it is. And it's not just Republicans. Many times it's progressive Democrats. Uh, as immigrants, we don't have that luxury, right? We want better schools. We want better childcare options. We want health care. We want for our families to feel safe in their community. Uh, in New Mexico, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that in 2010, 2011, we started organizing to push back on a Republican governor at the time, Susana Martinez, no relation, who wanted to take away driver's licenses from undocumented people. Right, this is like MAGA before MAGA, right? That's how we started organizing. Out of fear, we're going to lose our license. As I'm sitting around these rooms organizing people, I realize it's people with little kids running around. In fact, many times people couldn't come to the meetings because they're like, I don't have anywhere to leave my kid. And so we started offering free childcare at these meetings we were having so that the families could come out. Eventually, we knew we would win the driver's license battle. And so we started asking the families, what happens next? What do you guys want to see next? And they said, we need opportunities for our young children. We don't have any. We have to wait until they're 5 to be able to go take them to a learning environment. We want to do essentially early childhood education. That's where the movement for universal childcare begins. And it begins not with a demand that we want childcare, it begins with an aspirational movement of what's best for our children. And as a society, how can we rebuild the village that it takes to raise a child? That's where it begins. And so you fast forward 14 years later or so, New Mexico becomes the first state in the nation to offer free universal childcare and pre-K, because it's not just childcare, it's the whole continuum of early childhood. And that's a movement that is led by organizers and the families they organize with, not by any one politician, myself included. Uh, Now, I'll tell you what. I was involved in the organizing work, and in fact, that's the reason I run for office. Because time after time, the Democrats in my legislature would stonewall this idea of universal child care. It was the Democrats, not the Republicans, to be fair. That inspires
Why?
me to
Why?
run because I'm like, why? Because we were, um, New Mexico, as you know, we're a low income kind of state, right? People call us poor. We're not poor. We've got a lot of money, but it's stashed away. But in terms of general fund, historically, we've been low, right? It's ebbs and flows of the oil industry. Uh, and so we didn't want to propose childcare by taxing the billionaires. We don't have any damn billionaires to tax. We hardly have any millionaires, right? But we are sitting on a huge sovereign wealth fund that could be tapped to invest in these services. The Democrats at the time had a philosophy that we should not touch those sovereign wealth funds, hell or high water, because they're there for a rainy day. We kept saying it's pouring, invest 1% in the children. That was their philosophy, and to be honest, most of these guys were old and well-to-do, so I don't think they understood why childcare was important for families, right? And then you had guys like me at the time with one little kid who, I mean, I was paying $800 a month for their childcare, um, unaffordable. I mean, it's another mortgage, right? So that's why I jump in and I say, I think I could do a better job of relaying these ideas and getting these things done. So it starts with childcare, but honestly, it runs the gamut. New Mexico has one of the most progressive income tax structures in the country. Our earned income tax credit is among the highest in the country. We have a low income rebate among the highest. On average, a single mom with two kids working for minimum wage every year will get back roughly $9,000 to $10,000. Um, that's unheard of. That's the kind of poverty alleviation work we're doing in New Mexico. And like I tell my Republican friends, these are not handouts; these are hand ups. And to me, that's the model that the Democratic Party nationally should be looking at, right? Not just defend Medicaid, not just defend the safety net, but propose how we could do it better and how we can set up people for success.
But real quick, Chuck, let me jump in. I love all of that. But what I really like about the New Mexico story is basically everything you're saying that's funded is paid for by the oil and gas industry. You are an oil and gas state. I had no idea until I started doing research. I was like, the only thing that makes New Mexico work and keep afloat is the oil and gas energy export. So what I'm not hearing here, and I want to hear a little bit more to show how this can all be as a governing, is like, how do you promote that industry? Because the men and women that are working in that industry, they look like the three of us. They're Hispanic, they're brown people out in the fields, oil fields, working that stuff. Yes, the beneficiaries to expand the social safety net. I support that, but it's only possible when you're pro employer.
I agree wholeheartedly. I visited the southeast part of the state, the Permian Basin as we know it, many times, and you are absolutely right. The men and women working in those fields look just like us. They're putting food on the table. They have a great job that pays them very well. They're sending their kids to college on those jobs. It is, as a Democrat, it is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to celebrate. We are the second highest producer of oil in the entire country. And I would venture to say we produce the cleanest oil with the best labor standards in the entire world. On top of that, we just cut the ribbon. And big kudos to Senator Martin Heinrich because he's been on this for 20 years on the largest renewable energy infrastructure project in the entire Western Hemisphere. It's the SunZia project, which is powering 3.7 million homes in Phoenix and in LA, all through renewable energy, wind energy, all within a 150-mile radius from the oil rigs. So not only the second highest producer of oil, but the largest renewable energy project in the Western Hemisphere. New Mexico is showing that you could do both, right? As a Democrat who fights like hell for working people, I don't have to make a choice between turning off the spigot of oil and gas and going all renewable. We could do both. We can transition both. There's a climate activist on Twitter. This is several months ago, who said New Mexico is the Norway of the West. We're using
Hmm.
our oil dollars and we're investing them in our people. Universal child care and pre-K, free college, free apprenticeship programs for young people to go into the trades. And soon enough, we're going to have universal, fully paid for healthcare. We're going to be first in the nation to guarantee it. Uh, and it's because of this industry. So I'm not at all ashamed to lead on this because, in fact, if you go talk to those workers down there, they are making good money, they are living the American dream, and they are powering literally the state of New Mexico.
I think it's really important. We'll get back to politics here about what has just happened in the last week that is really different. It was ironic. I don't know if I used ironic. I like my new word is pithy because Mike says pithy. I don't think it's pithy. I don't think it's interesting that the DNC met last week and they put together the new presidential schedule for the primaries next year. Now, for all of you at home, there hadn't been a lot of money, outside money, that has flowed into New Mexico in the last few years. They've got some pretty safe districts, except for the Southern District, where there's lots of money that flows in for our dear friend Gabe Vasquez, who's been on this program and is a personal friend of me and Mike Madrid, who we really like and we love his philosophy. But what I need to know, Javier, is this is a huge boondoggle. This is a good get for New Mexico to be one of the top 5 states. It's the first, Mike Madrid, state that's an early primary that is a border state. So immigration will become a big point for these Democratic primary folks trying to explain what they think about the border. You know, what is your philosophy? Do you want an open border? Do you want to build a wall? Like, tell us. And then I think it's going to raise Javier's platform a lot. But tell me what it means, A, to have New Mexico be in the top 5 to you in New Mexico. And then B, I think it's worth explaining to people the difference between the Southern District, the city of Albuquerque, and then like the ski areas in Santa Fe. Like, there's Latinos in all 3 areas. New Mexico's got more Latino voters as a percentage than any other state. So we get to highlight our gente. But you may want to walk some people through that, because we got to get back to politics about why, you know, the influence you're going to have. And I'll say that.
Yeah, look, in 2018, I took on a Don Quixote type of mission by sponsoring a bill to make New Mexico the first presidential primary. Of course, everybody laughed, and the bill died immediately in an unceremoniously horrible death. We worked really hard the last few months, and kudos to our governor too, because she made a huge pitch, very loud pitch to them. New Mexico, as a border state, as you mentioned, New Mexico with its, we're majority people of color when you take Latino and indigenous and others. We are like I mentioned earlier, an energy state, and yet we're a Democratic trifecta. We are investing in our people. We are building the blueprint that I think the Democratic Party, and quite frankly, either party, nationally should embrace to uplift every single American. I think that with the attention that we will get now, I think that the opportunity is there for us to highlight that blueprint in many ways, and hopefully for a presidential candidate or two on the Democratic side, at least, to embrace that blueprint. When it comes to the congressional districts, you couldn't be more right. I mean, when you take that southern district and you take that northern district, both of them have high populations of Hispanic Latino voters, but those voters are very different, right? You're going to have old school, traditional acequia and land grant families up north, and you're going to have oil and gas workers, mostly immigrants down south, right? And so, as a Democratic Party, we have to be attuned to that. That's why I think that Vasquez jumping into that race, 4 or 5 years ago or so, was critical, because he is from that community. He understands the ins and outs of that district in a way that really no other Democrat really can fully grasp, right? At the same time, when it comes to our congressional district, sort of in the middle of Albuquerque, that's gone from red. We that was Republican until 2008, solid red, until Martin Heinrich took it, and then it kind of got purplish for a minute when Michelle Lujan Grisham had it for a few years, and now it's reliably blue with Melanie Stansbury. Now, we did redistrict, right, as you know, 2021 or so, and so it's not exactly a northern, center, southern district anymore. They all sort of loop around. In fact, I think the city of Hobbs is represented by all 3 of those districts at some level. Some would call it gerrymandering. I call it reallocation of voters.
At least you
Totally.
did it at the right time.
The,
You didn't
the,
do
the,
it in
the
the
courts
middle of
agree.
a year.
That's true. That's true. And so those are the nuances, right, of New Mexico. And I invite all of these folks who are going to run for president, when they come to New Mexico, to not make the mistake that you can go up to Española or Las Vegas, New Mexico, and that you're getting a full view of the state, right? They really should be going to Hobbs and Las Cruces and Albuquerque and up north to get a full feel for who the state is and what we represent.
How much are Californians messing up your politics by moving into Santa Fe?
It's mostly Texans, to be honest, that are moving in. People that are fleeing the Greg Abbott experiment. But they're actually helping out a lot, right? Because we're getting a lot of Democratic refugee or asylum seekers, whatever they want to call themselves, into places like Albuquerque and Santa Fe and whatnot. And so we're glad to have them. We lost 8 years of population growth under Susana Martinez, and it's taken us a little while to get back on. So uh, we welcome any and anyone who wants to come and live large in New Mexico.
Just for everybody at home, I pulled up the latest. They redid these yesterday with the Cook Political Report, but the Northern District of New Mexico, Mike Madrid, is a PVI D+3. The City District of Albuquerque in the middle is a D+7. And our good friend Gabe Vasquez PVI is dead even at 0, half and half. So you can see how they have split up these voters to where there's some Democratic, but these are not R or D+10s. These ain't even D+9s. Like Albuquerque seat is D+7. That's the biggest one they have. And they really, lightened up the Northern District by putting in Little Texas over there. But let me get to this question because we're getting down to the last 10 minutes here, Javier. I want to give you a little platform to talk about issues. What issues do you hear mainly from Latinos? And again, I know that's half the population or more of New Mexico. So what's driving this? Me and Mike talk every day about Latinos that went over and gave Donald Trump a try because they were aggravated, not feeling any results from their government. They were anxious about their economic well-being, and they've just been sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now they are pissed about that because everything still costs a lot, and ICE is in their neighborhoods. And so they're moving back to the left, not because they're in love with Democrats, but because they're really pissed at what they're living through. So tell us about what you hear on the ground as far as issues. And then lastly, some of the accomplishments that you mentioned at NALEO, y'all been able to get done in the State House.
Yeah, look, the voters that I talk to, the people that I talk to day in and day out, this is the case in New Mexico, but also it's been the case anywhere else that I've traveled. First of all, people are really fed up with how dysfunctional government is behaving, particularly at the federal level. I think by the same token, there's a little bit of exhaustion with regard to Democrats simply saying no or attacking the federal administration without proposing ideas for ourselves. Uh, as people feel the pinch of gas prices, grocery prices, rent, being able to get a mortgage at an affordable rate, I think there's a lot of blame that gets placed on government. And I don't know that people differentiate necessarily between who's a D and who's an R. I think people just want things to be solved. And so that presents an opportunity for my generation of policymakers and public officials to chart a different path, right? And as we were talking about earlier with organizing and activism, right? It's not just saying no to things, but it's proposing things and being creative about how we want the future of this country to look like. I believe that's where our faith comes in, right? And I don't care what religious affiliation anyone has, but it's really a matter of having faith and hope that a better tomorrow is possible. That's probably the biggest lesson from my immigrant parents that they taught me was to not lose hope. Lo último que se pierde es la esperanza, right? Like, no matter how tough it gets, there's always light at the end of that tunnel. And that's what we have to do. That's what we have to give the voters. So when it comes to how expensive things are, and I hate, I'm starting to not really like using the word affordability because it's becoming a talking point, right? But it's really, ask any politician what the minimum wage is in the state. Like, they better know right away. Ask them how much they paid for groceries last time they went. Ask them how much eggs cost. Like, we need to know that like this. If we are truly in touch with our constituents, then we're at that grocery store next to them buying that dozen eggs, paying $6.50 and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is wacky," right? And we got to actually shop with the same people that we represent and sit at the cash register and complain together about how expensive things are. And then it's up to us to give people something to look forward to, not just vote against what we don't like, right? It's kind of like activism versus organizing, right? Not just tell people what we don't like. I don't like the liquor store in my neighborhood. Okay, fine, but what do you want, right? You want more housing? Do you want more green space? Do you want better streets? Do you want a better water system? Whatever the case might be.
I'd like one
One
of
of the
them
things that
old wells. Maybe came
it,
over
it,
my neighborhood.
there you go. There you go. Now, for me, one of the things I'm most proud of is that we are making New Mexico a place where we are investing in high quality cradle to career education systems. And we are unafraid to invest in people. We trust our people. To me, that's going to be the great transition that you're going to see. And I'm not going to see it in my time in public office. That's the other thing. I'm not going to get to cut the ribbons on this stuff. And that's okay, because this is a 20 to 30-year plan to turn New Mexico around. And when it comes to that cradle to career system that we're building, when it comes to being the second highest producer of oil and home to the largest renewable energy project in the Western Hemisphere, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to housing affordability, New Mexico is gonna lead. And the reason it's gonna lead is because we have decided to elect people who understand the struggle. Not just people with talking points, not just people with the shiniest resume. We are electing people who reflect the values of New Mexico, from Hobbs to Farmington to Madrid to Albuquerque, you name it. Furthermore, it takes courage from people like me and Gabe and all the others that have jumped into the circle, right? Because it's not easy, right? It's not easy to be in the public eye all the time. It's not easy to have a target on your back all the time. Sometimes quite literally, unfortunately. But that's what we're here to do, right? My mom and dad didn't migrate here for me to just sit pretty and comfortable in my chair, right? I've got to make this place what I wanted to become for the next generation. One thing that stuck with me the last few weeks, and I don't even remember where I heard this, but us that are first generation, we're the last generation as well that has that connection to our migrant story, right? And even though I throw at my kids every single day that they're immigrants too, right? It's still one step removed. I took my little boy to the Mexican Museum of Art in Chicago yesterday. And, he was sort of like, he's 11. He was like, oh man, like he felt the feeling, right? That's my job now, is to relay that feeling to the next generation, because my generation is the last one with that direct connection. And as a politician, that has to be reflected in the policies and in the message that I convey to voters, not just in New Mexico, but everywhere. I mean, as you guys know, I'll go anywhere that wants to hear our story. I'll jump on a flight and go tell our story, and come back home for dinner. I'm unafraid to do that. I've been on plenty of planes for a quick 3-hour meeting and then come back home.
I love that perspective too. That story that you just said. I've never heard it voiced that way, but I absolutely love. I love that. I love the way that that's coming from. I do want to talk about New Mexico a little bit more, just because it is a little bit of a fascinating place, and the dynamics of Latinidad, like you just mentioned. It is the new recent migrant. It is probably the state with the oldest Hispanic presence in the country. How have you found that those generational divides are easy to overcome with a common set of issues, or is it just not possible and you don't try to?
It is possible now. I think once upon a time it was harder, for sure. I think that there was that divide of, like, folks kind of connected their ancestry to Spain and everybody else was not wanted. That doesn't happen anymore. And it's really over the last 20 years that has shifted. Uh, I think that we've also done a better job of framing these issues as issues that impact all of us, right? And we learned that during the driver's license debate in 2010, 2011, 2012. We learned that in order to build that coalition, we couldn't differentiate between, Mike Madrid from northern New Mexico with a link to Spain and Chuck Rocha, a recent immigrant. Like, we had to make those connections. In fact, my allies up in Santa Fe, Somos un Pueblo Unido Immigrant Rights Organization, they started this concept called Somos Primos, right? To kind of bring the other folks into the movement with great success. A coalition that continues to this day, quite frankly, and a coalition that has now been instrumental. Went from immigrant rights now to doing climate work and childcare work and whatnot.
Somos primos. I love that. Send us a link. We'll put
And
that in the link in the description below.
before we close out, is Madrid, New Mexico named after some of Mike's ancestors? And is it a trashy place?
I'm going to answer this. So this goes back to Rocha de Madrid, who was in the New Mexico territories back in the late 1500s, and the lineage that comes back through Santa Fe. There was a time when Madrid was bigger than Albuquerque in the 1920s. It's a mining town. It's a boom town. It is now a ghost town with people of less than 200 people. But it is. I'm going to be visiting there again. We jumped on, Javier and I, the speaker were on before. Chuck, you joined because you were still taking a nap. But I'm going to visit there. We'll have to do another live recording. Maybe we do it from Madrid if you're up to it, Mr. Speaker. Because we can also let New Mexico enter the chat on the debate about who's got better Mexican food. Even though it's California, Texas is a distant second. I think New Mexico could probably pass Texas if it tried harder.
I think New Mexico is where it's at, you guys. The chile is hotter, and it's homegrown. That's the thing.
How do you answer the question as the Speaker of the House when you walk into a restaurant and they ask for red or green?
I always go green every time.
What about all the people that like red that you piss off?
Well, it's the same chili. It's just cooked differently.
Oh,
and
it's just one.
I'll give you a tougher question, and I'll answer it here, too, on the record. Hatch green chili, and you got to tell Gabe Vasquez I said this. Hatch green chili, it's a little watered down. The best one comes from a town. I'm just saying, the best one is from Lemitar, New Mexico, which is also in Gabe's district, so he shouldn't be too mad about it. And it is to die for. It is the good stuff. Lemitar, New Mexico. Next time you get your green chili, get it from Lemitar, New Mexico. I just pissed off half the voters, but it is what it is.
Speaker, we're super happy that you could join the Latino Vote podcast. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you should know that me and Javier look a lot alike. I just took off my cowboy hat, and I'm damn sure going to go to New Mexico and darken my beard a little bit and tell folks I'm the Speaker of the House and see if I can get free chili on all of my enchiladas, just so all of you are really clear here. Mr. Speaker, thank you again for being here. Before we go, tell everybody where they can follow you on your social media accounts or your website if they want to support you and all of your efforts.
Yeah, thank you. Javier 4NM. Javier F4NM is my handle on all social media. Javier Martinez for New Mexico is my website. You can follow me there too. Thank you both for the time. This is a real joy, real treat. Next time you have Gabe Vasquez, ask him what neighborhood in Juarez he grew up in. I grew up one neighborhood over. It's a funny story. We'll tell you about it next time.
It's so funny. We love the congressman, and the congressman is spending some time with his wonderful partner. They're expecting a baby in just a few months, and so we're super happy for Gabe and super happy for you, Mr. Speaker. Thank all of you for listening. Again, like, share, smash that like button, as they say. If you're lucky enough to still have your mom and dad, give them a call this weekend. Tell them you love them. Until next week, y'all be good.